Welcome to Sleep with Myth. Close your eyes and let the world fade away. Tonight we drift beyond time, where gods dream and stories remember their light. Before the world had cooled, before the sky learned the color of blue, there was only the pulse of flame beneath the newborn earth. It was there, in the heart of the mountain, that Hephaestus awoke. Not in glory nor in peace, but in exile. They said the gods were perfect. They said Olympus was flawless. But perfection has no place for the broken. When Hera, queen of heaven, looked upon the child she had birthed, twisted of leg, scarred by flame, she cast him down from the golden heights. Through wind and thunder he fell, a streak of unwanted light, until the sea took him. For 9 days, the waves kept him, cradled in their cold arms. And in that silence beneath the surface, Hephaestus began to hear it. A rhythm deeper than the sea, slower than breath. The sound beneath the mountain, the heartbeat of the world itself. He followed it, through caverns of molten light, through rivers of metal that flowed like dreams, until he found a cavern where flame did not burn but sang. He listened, and the song spoke. It told him that creation was not born from beauty, but from struggle. That fire, when contained, could shape worlds. So he began to build. From shattered coral and cooled lava, he forged his first anvil. From broken shells he formed hammers. And when his hand struck metal for the first time, the mountain trembled. Not from anger, but from recognition. Hephaestus had found his purpose. Each strike echoed through the earth like thunder remembering its name. The fire obeyed him, the stone yielded to him, and in time, the sea that once held him bowed to the sparks that danced upon its surface. He forged jewelry for the nymphs who had pitied him. He crafted crowns of gold that glowed with their own light. And in the reflection of molten bronze, he began to see something he had never known before. Not beauty, but worth. When word reached Olympus of the works emerging from the sea's heart, even the gods grew silent. Hera, who had cast him down, felt a tremor of shame. Zeus, Lord of Thunder, envied the fire that answered to another hand, and so they called him home. But Hephaestus no longer belonged to Olympus. He belonged to the forge, to the rhythm beneath the world, to the place where imperfection became divine. The halls of Olympus gleamed with pride when Hephaestus returned. But pride is a fragile thing. It cracks easily under the weight of truth. He came not as the boy they had thrown away, but as a god reborn in flame. His hands bore the scars of creation. His eyes glowed with the heat of 1,000 forges. The other gods marveled at him and feared him, for Hephaestus no longer worshipped perfection. He worshipped the work. Zeus, in his thunderous curiosity, ordered him to build again, to craft wonders fit for gods. And so the forges of Olympus roared for the first time. Hephaestus built palaces of metal that shimmered like morning dew. He forged chariots of lightning for Apollo, necklaces of fire for Aphrodite. Every strike of his hammer echoed through heaven, shaping not only gold and bronze but envy. One day Hera came to the forge. The air rippled with heat. The walls glowed red as blood. She spoke softly, too softly for a queen. "My son," she said, "the world has never seen beauty such as yours. But Hephaestus heard the tremor in her voice, the echo of shame still hidden behind her crown. He bowed not as a son, but as a craftsman before his patron. "What would you have me make, mother of the sky?" Hera hesitated. Then she said, "A throne, one so magnificent that no god could look upon it without awe." He nodded, and he built. For 9 nights and 9 fires he forged. He wove starlight into molten silver, the whispers of the wind into gold. When the throne was finished, it shone like captured dawn, radiant, perfect, divine. Hera took her seat upon it, smiling. But the smile froze. The throne gripped her. Invisible chains of golden light wound around her arms, her voice, her pride. The gods rushed to free her, but none could. Hephaestus watched from the shadows, silent. Then he spoke, his words echoing like molten iron cooling in water. "Mother, you wished for beauty that no one could surpass, and now you will sit in it forever." Zeus thundered in rage. Hermes begged for mercy. Aphrodite wept. But Hephaestus only turned back to his forge. He did not seek revenge. He sought balance. It was only when Dionysus, the god of wine and madness, came to him with laughter and compassion that the hammer fell silent. Through the haze of mirth, Hephaestus relented, freed his mother, and returned to Olympus, not as a child nor as a weapon, but as the one god who could turn suffering into art. The forge cooled, but its memory glowed within the halls. And though Hera never again looked into her son's eyes, the gods began to understand. Perfection born of pain is the truest beauty of all. The fires of Olympus had dimmed, but deep beneath the world, a greater light still burned. Hephaestus had returned to his forge, not in shame, not in defiance, but in devotion. The mountain itself had become his temple. Its veins glowed with molten gold. Its breath shimmered with embers that whispered his name. He struck the anvil again and again. Each sound was both thunder and heartbeat, echoing through the bones of the world. Mortals who lived near the mountain would wake at night and swear they heard gods dreaming. For Hephaestus was not forging for Olympus anymore. He was forging for something deeper, for truth. The gods spoke of perfection, of eternity, of beauty untouched by time. But Hephaestus had seen another kind of perfection, the kind that endures despite the fire. He began to craft something unlike anything before. Not armor, not crown, but a heart, a living forge, a vessel that could hold the flame of creation itself. He gathered the breath of the storm, the tears of the ocean, the first spark from the dawn. He shaped them into form, his hammer steady, his soul aflame. The work consumed him. His beard singed, his hands blistered, his mind blurred with heat and exhaustion. But he did not stop, because creation to him was love, the only kind he knew. And when at last the hammer fell silent, the heart pulsed, beat once, deep, slow and alive, a rhythm like his own. Hephaestus stood trembling before it, the light washing over his scarred skin. It was not divine perfection, it was something far greater. It was forged imperfection made sacred. But the gods feared what they could not understand. When Zeus learned of this creation, he descended in lightning and wrath. "The flame of life belongs to me," he thundered. "Not even you, smith of gods, may steal its breath." Hephaestus did not bow. He placed a hand upon the pulsing heart and said quietly, "I did not steal it, Father. I made it." When the storm passed, Hephaestus was gone. Only the echo of his hammer remained, a heartbeat buried within the mountain, still pulsing faintly beneath the ashes. The gods searched, but found nothing, and the mortals far below began to dream of fire, not that of destruction, but of creation. They built, they shaped, they forged, and in their work his flame lived on. The heart continued to beat beneath the earth, waiting, listening, because even gods cannot silence the forge that loves the world. The mountain slept for an age. Its fire cooled, its breath turned to mist. Mortals built cities upon its slopes, never knowing they walked above the heartbeat of a god. Yet in the deep chambers below, a spark still glowed, patient, watchful, pulsed like a memory refusing to die. And in that rhythm Hephaestus awoke once more. He rose from the ashes of his own making, not as the crippled smith, nor the outcast son, but as a god who had learned the language of the earth. His body bore the marks of flame and thunder, his eyes the calm of a fire that no storm could kill. He looked upon his forge, broken, blackened, and smiled, because to rebuild is a holier act than to create. He set to work again, not to prove, not to defy, but to heal. For even the heart of the mountain wept from the scars of Zeus's wrath. The hammer rose and fell. The fire breathed once more. The sound returned, slow, steady, eternal. And from that rhythm came something new, understanding. Hephaestus realized that he had fallen twice, once from Olympus, once from grace. Yet both times the earth had caught him. The world had been his anvil, his teacher, his companion. Above, the gods felt his presence again. Aphrodite, whose beauty had once been his torment, felt warmth upon her cheek and whispered his name. Poseidon's seas trembled as veins of fire awoke beneath the waves. Even Zeus, far upon his throne, turned toward the horizon, uneasy, yet humbled, because creation cannot be unmade. Once fire has learned to love, it burns forever. Hephaestus forged not for gods, but for mortals, blades that protected, tools that built, light that guided. He forged hope, and the mortals began to whisper tales of the god beneath the mountain, the one who burned but did not destroy, who fell but always rose, who taught the world that even broken things could shine. As his forge roared once more, he spoke softly into the flames. "I have fallen twice, but I rise for them." The mountain answered with light, and in its glow the world turned toward dawn. The forge was alive again. Its heartbeat rose and fell with the rhythm of the god who had claimed it. But something within Hephaestus had changed. He no longer heard the flame as a roar. Now it whispered. Each ember spoke like a child learning to breathe, asking not to burn, but to touch. For ages, Hephaestus had shaped the divine and the mortal, crowns for kings, chains for titans, thrones for gods. But he had never shaped something that desired to feel. He stared into the heart of his forge and saw the reflection of his own loneliness. Fire was like him, born to serve, never to rest. And so he made a vow. I will give you hands. You will no longer destroy. You will create. He began to forge in silence. The air trembled as his hammer fell. Sparks leapt like stars seeking names. The flame beneath the mountain coiled and rose, shaping itself to his will. First came the bones, glowing iron and molten gold. Then the breath, drawn from the wind that once sang through Olympus. Then the touch, the first warmth of dawn, pressed into shape. When his work was done, there stood before him a figure made of living fire. Not fierce but tender, not wild but awake. The flame looked upon its maker and spoke in the language of light. Why did you give me form? Hephaestus smiled, weary yet proud. So that even fire may learn to hold without burning. Outside, mortals began to see strange lights at night. Soft, wandering embers drifting through valleys and cities, bringing warmth to the dying and dreams to the lonely. They called them Hephaestus's children, guardians of hearths, keepers of the sacred flame. Yet deep within the forge, the god sat alone beside his creation, his hands trembling from exhaustion and awe. He watched the being move, fluid, gentle, shaping tiny sparks into fragile sculptures of light. And for the first time, the god of fire felt something he could not forge. Peace. The forge no longer thundered. It breathed. The mountain's pulse slowed, its fire dimming to a deep, living glow. Hephaestus sat beside the being he had made, the living flame, and together they watched the embers dance in silence. No gods came. No thunder split the sky. Only the quiet hum of creation remained. The flame turned to him and spoke softly, its voice like the rustle of ash in the wind. Will I fade, Father? Hephaestus shook his head. Not while there is one who remembers the warmth of their own heart. For fire, he had learned, was not in the forge or the sun. It lived in memory, in the moment two souls touched and knew they were not alone. Outside, mortals built temples to the god of flame. They said that when a blacksmith's hammer struck true, the echo was his blessing, that every spark was a word of his unspoken hymn. But inside the mountain, Hephaestus worked one last time. He shaped the metal of his own anvil into a small orb, a perfect circle that held both fire and silence. He placed it in the heart of the forge and whispered, "When the world forgets how to love, may this light remind them." Then he smiled, a weary, gentle smile, and let the heat take him. His body became part of the flame. His soul merged with the rhythm he had created. And the forge fell silent, not from death, but from completion. The gods above felt it, a stillness like the space between lightning and thunder, a silence so perfect it sang. Centuries passed, mountains turned to dust, empires fell and rose again. But sometimes, on nights when the wind carries the scent of iron and smoke, a single spark drifts down from the sky and lands beside those who dream of creating something beautiful. And when they open their eyes, they see the faint outline of a god's hand guiding theirs, steady, scarred, and luminous, because Hephaestus never left. He became the silence between sparks, the breath between hammer and anvil, the warmth that lives in every act of creation. The fire that once burned now sleeps, not gone, only dreaming. Thank you for listening to Sleep with Myth. May your dreams glow softly with the light of the eternal forge.